The moment humanity was given one chance, it did not come with respect or hope, but with a cold calculation delivered across a polished chamber of the Galactic Council, where dozens of alien species watched a small blue world flicker on a holographic display and debated its fate as if it were already decided. And the human delegation stood there knowing they were not equals in the eyes of those who ruled the stars, knowing that every whisper in the chamber carried the same belief that Earth was young, divided, and weak, and the chance offer was not mercy, but a test designed for failure, a single ultimatum wrapped in diplomatic language that demanded submission, disarmament, and obedience to laws written without human input. And the Council believed this offer generous because in their long history most species never even reached that stage. Most were crushed, absorbed, or erased before they learned how vast the galaxy truly was. And as the chamber settled into silence, a human ambassador named Daniel Carter listened carefully, not because he expected fairness, but because he wanted to remember every word, every tone of dismissal, every subtle insult that slipped through translation filters. And he noted how the Virex delegates clicked their mandibles in amusement, how the correlate observers shifted with bored indifference, and how the council speaker, a towering figure of pale crystal flesh, explained with measured calm that humanity had one cycle to comply or face: enforcement. And enforcement was a word that carried centuries of violence behind it. And Carter thought of Earth at that moment not as a symbol, but as a place filled with people who would never know this conversation happened. People working late shifts. People arguing over trivial things. People looking at the night sky without knowing it was being measured for conquest. And when Carter finally spoke, he did not shout or threaten, because humanity had learned long ago that survival did not come from loud defiance, but from patience and preparation. So he said only that Earth would respond within a given time, and the Council accepted that answer with barely concealed satisfaction, believing the outcome already written, because in their experience a single chance always ended the same way, with the species folding under pressure. And as the human delegation left the chamber escorted by silent security drones, the alien observers returned to other matters: trade disputes, border skirmishes, minor wars between established powers, and Earth faded from the main display to a smaller icon at the edge of the system map, already categorized as a problem that would soon be resolved. And far away in the solar system, the message arrived encoded and secure, spreading through military channels, scientific councils, and political leaders with brutal clarity. And there was no panic in the first hours, no dramatic speeches broadcast to the public, only long meetings behind closed doors, where men and women who had spent their lives preparing for impossible scenarios realized that the impossible had finally arrived. And Admiral Jonathan Hale sat in a quiet command room, reading the Council transcript line by line, his face calm but his thoughts sharp, because he recognized a pattern immediately, the same pattern seen in human history, when empires offered ultimatums to nations they believed inferior, and Hale understood that the chance offer was designed to strip Earth of its defenses and turn it into a resource node, not a member. And across the world, similar realizations formed in different minds. Scientists who understood what technologies had been hidden, generals who knew which fleets were ready and which were still theoretical, and political leaders who had balanced unity against secrecy for decades. And as the hours passed, a consensus emerged without a single vote being cast. Humanity would not accept the terms, but it would not refuse them openly either, because the galaxy expected fear and hesitation, and what it would receive instead was silence. And that silence unsettled even some within the Council when reports showed Earth had not responded publicly, had not begun dismantling its defenses, had not broadcast pleas or protests, and the Virex intelligence overseers dismissed this as denial, claiming humans were arguing among themselves as primitives always did, while the Council speaker reassured concerned members that enforcement fleets were already positioned, ready to act once the cycle ended. And on Earth, the preparation moved forward with quiet urgency, as shipyards that officially produced civilian vessels shifted to military output overnight, as research stations unlocked projects long kept theoretical, and as crews were briefed not with speeches of glory but with clear statements of risk and necessity. And Captain Laura Mitchell stood on the bridge of a deep space vessel that officially did not exist, listening as her. Orders were delivered in plain language that left no room for doubt. Humanity would not strike first, but it would be ready to respond with everything it had. And Mitchell felt the weight of that responsibility not as fear, but as resolve, because she understood that this was not about proving superiority, but about survival. And as the countdown ticked down, the Council records, the galaxy watched Earth with mild curiosity, expecting the familiar signs of capitulation, and instead what they failed to notice were the subtle changes in deep space telemetry, the faint signatures of engines warming far beyond known human capability, the synchronized movements of satellites that aligned not for defense but for coordination. And when the final moment of the ultimatum arrived, the council chamber filled again, displays lighting up as enforcement fleets stood ready to move, and the council speaker prepared to announce the failure of humanity to comply, already rehearsing the language of regret and inevitability. And that was when the human response finally arrived, not as a plea or a threat, but as a simple transmission sent across every channel at once, stating that humanity acknowledged the offer, rejected its premise, and would accept the consequences. And for a brief moment the chamber was silent, not with shock but with disbelief, because countless species had stood there before and none had chosen this path. And as enforcement orders were issued and fleets began to move, the council did not yet understand that the chance they had given humanity was never about Earth proving it could obey. It was about the galaxy proving whether it could survive what came next. And in that moment humanity did not cheer or celebrate, because there was nothing to celebrate. Only a shared understanding spreading across a planet that had finally been pushed too far, that the galaxy had made a decision based on assumptions, and those assumptions were about to be tested in ways no council record could fully capture. As the enforcement fleets crossed the threshold into human-claimed space, the galaxy expected resistance measured in desperation, scattered ships, frantic defenses, and quick collapse, because that was how every prior enforcement action had unfolded, and the commanders of those fleets spoke with calm confidence as they advanced, reporting no significant opposition, and noting with faint amusement how quiet the region seemed, interpreting the silence as proof that humanity had chosen paralysis over preparation, and the lead commander, a scale being known for methodical cruelty, ordered probes launched toward the outer human defenses, expecting to map weak points before the final strike. And those probes vanished without warning, not exploding, not sending distress signals, simply gone as the space itself had closed around them. And for a brief moment confusion rippled to the fleet communications before it was smoothed over by assumptions of technical failure, and the advance continued deeper, unaware that every kilometer forward placed them within overlapping detection grids built over decades by human engineers who assumed that if the galaxy ever came, it would come with overwhelming force. And those grids fed data into command centers on Earth and beyond, where analysts spoke in low, steady voices, confirming trajectories, identifying formations, and predicting intent with cold precision. And Admiral Hale listened to the reports without interruption, his expression unchanged as he authorized the next phase, not with dramatic language, but with a simple confirmation, and across human space vessels that had never been publicly acknowledged, powered-up systems that bent known physics just enough to remain invisible to conventional sensors. And Captain Mitchell felt the hum of her ship shift as they slid into position, watching alien fleets pass close enough to touch, yet unaware of the human presence surrounding them. And she understood then that the galaxy had never truly seen how humanity fought when survival was at stake. Because humans did not rely on overwhelming numbers or ancient doctrines. They relied on adaptation, redundancy, and the willingness to prepare for scenarios others dismissed as impossible. And when enforcement fleets finally reached the designated strike distance from Earth, the Council expected a swift, decisive broadcast announcing compliance through destruction. But instead, what reached the Council chamber were fragmented. Reports of weapon systems failing, navigation arrays misaligning, and ships drifting out of formation without explanation. And the council speaker demanded clarity, accusing the fleet commanders of incompetence, and the response that came back was not fear, but confusion, as commanders reported being engaged by targets they could not lock onto, weapons firing and missing as if guided away by unseen hands. And then the first ship vanished from council tracking entirely, not destroyed in a flash, but simply removed from existence in a way that left behind a distortion that sensors could not interpret. And in human command centers there was no cheering as confirmation came through, only quiet acknowledgement that the systems worked as designed, and Hale authorized controlled escalation, not to annihilate but to demonstrate capability. And the human vessels began coordinated strikes that targeted propulsion, communications, and command structures rather than hulls, leaving alien ships intact but helpless, drifting without control. And Captain Mitchell watched through augmented displays as a massive alien cruiser went dark, its weapons silenced in seconds, and she felt no triumph, only a grim certainty that this was the only language the galaxy had forced humanity to speak, And as reports flooded the council chamber, the mood shifted from irritation to unease, because this was not how enforcement actions unfolded. This was not a desperate last stand. This was organized, restrained, and devastatingly precise. And some council members began to question the original assumptions, wondering how a species so young could possess such control, while others doubled down, demanding full annihilation authorization. And that internal conflict delayed decisive action just long enough for humanity to expand the demonstration, disabling entire wings of the enforcement fleet without firing a single visible shot, and broadcasting clear messages on open channels instructing crews to stand down and await retrieval, messages delivered in calm, neutral tones that carried no malice, only finality. And across the galaxy, observers who monitored council operations began to notice anomalies, whispers spreading through intelligence networks that something unprecedented was unfolding near Earth. And as the enforcement fleet lost cohesion, the council speaker attempted to regain control of the narrative, insisting publicly that the situation was contained, even as private channels filled with questions they could not answer. And on Earth, leaders faced a different burden, deciding how far to push, knowing that total destruction would only validate the council's fear-driven worldview, while restraint carried the risk of appearing weak. And in those deliberations, humanity revealed its true divergence from prior galactic powers, because the goal was not conquest but deterrence, not domination but survival on its own terms. And as the first phase concluded with the enforcement fleet effectively neutralized without catastrophic loss of life, the galaxy stood at the edge of realization, beginning to understand that the chance given to humanity had not been squandered or refused blindly. It had been accepted in a way no council precedent had prepared them for, and the consequences of that misunderstanding were only beginning to unfold. The galaxy had never before witnessed such coordinated precision from a single species, and as the enforcement fleets drifted powerless, Earth's hidden assets moved like a shadow network across the Sol system, striking with surgical timing that revealed decades of preparation, decades the council had assumed would never be necessary, and every alien vessel that had once mocked human technology now found itself immobilized, its systems overridden by signals it could not interpret, its weapons rendered inert not by brute force but by human ingenuity that had anticipated not just a known enemy, but the unknown. And in command centers across the world, scientists monitored these systems, not with excitement but with meticulous care, calculating probabilities, testing redundancies, and ensuring that no error could compound in a situation that had become unprecedented in galactic history. And Admiral Hale coordinated multiple task forces simultaneously, each operating independently yet perfectly synchronized, a testament to both technological advancement and human adaptability. And on the front lines, Captain Mitchell piloted her vessel with quiet determination, observing alien crews struggle with controls that refused to obey, their panic restrained only by protocols and instinctive discipline. And for the first time, many alien observers felt uncertainty, the sensation of losing control over what they had always considered weaker species. And while the council convened in urgent sessions trying to assess the scale of failure, they received conflicting reports from their intelligence networks, each data point suggesting a new anomaly, a new way in which human systems outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and outlasted expectations. And the Virex delegates whisper among themselves, their mandibles clicking in disbelief as the evidence grew, because nothing in their historical records accounted for this level of strategic foresight. Nothing predicted a species that would, accept an ultimatum, yet prepare for every contingency simultaneously. And in quieter corners of the council chamber, some delegates began to question whether their centuries of experience had blinded them to the possibility that human evolution was not linear but exponential in tactical capability. And the coiled observers, normally indifferent, leaned forward as communications came in detailing fleets immobilized, command structures disrupted, and entire divisions of ships effectively neutralized without a single hull breach. And the council speaker struggled to maintain composure, issuing statements claiming the situation was contained even as private channels were filled with alarm, while Earth's leaders coordinated the next steps not with arrogance or haste, but with careful consideration of optics, consequences, and broader galactic perception, because humanity had learned long ago that survival depended not on emotional reaction, but measured response. And across multiple layers of government, military, and scientific councils, every piece of intelligence was cross-referenced, analyzed, and tested against worst-case scenarios to ensure that the next phase would reinforce deterrence without escalating into uncontrollable war. And as the second wave of coordinated strikes began, targeting propulsion cores, sensor arrays, and communication hubs, alien crews realized too late that their failure was not random chance, but systematic dismantling, an orchestration of precision born from decades of planning and human resolve. And even as the alien fleet attempted countermeasures, they found that every adjustment had been anticipated, blocked, or redirected by hidden systems embedded in vessels, satellites, and orbital platforms. And Captain Mitchell watched their instruments, noting how the Virex flagship attempted maneuvers it had used successfully against entire sectors before, only to find its engines misaligned and systems overloaded. And in moments like these, Earth's leadership felt a grim satisfaction not in destruction, but in validation of humanity's resilience. And the Council, now fully aware that their initial assessment of weakness had been catastrophically wrong, convened emergency sessions where voices rose in heated argument, accusations of miscalculation, arrogance, and oversight flying as the enforcement fleets remained immobilized and increasingly vulnerable. And across the galaxy, news of these events began to spread quietly through observers and traders, whispers that humans were not what they seemed, that Earth had secrets, preparation, and capabilities far beyond expectation. And as the third phase unfolded, demonstrating control over alien fleet movements, communications, and logistics, humanity had effectively rewritten the rules of engagement in real time, proving not just that it would survive, but that it could dominate situations where the galaxy had assumed superiority. And yet, even in this display, there was no revelry, no grandstanding, only measured execution of plans developed over decades, and a lesson began to sink in the minds of those who watched. The galaxy had given humanity one chance and assumed it would fail, and now it was learning, painfully and incompletely, that failure was never an option humans permitted themselves. And as alien fleets drifted in chaos and the Council struggled to issue coherent commands, Earth's task forces prepared for the final demonstration, a calibrated display of human capability that would ensure no miscalculation could ever again underestimate the species. And in this quiet preparation, the weight of human responsibility settled across all involved, a shared understanding that survival was not merely tactical but strategic, requiring restraint, precision, and absolute clarity of purpose. And when the moment came, humanity would show not just power, but an intelligence and foresight that would permanently alter the galaxy's perception of the small blue planet it had so casually dismissed. The alien fleets, once confident and orderly, now drifted like marionettes cut from their strings, engines humming weakly, weapons unresponsive, command networks scrambled beyond recognition, and the Council chambers buzzed with frantic analysis as delegates tried to understand how a species they considered primitive had achieved such unprecedented control. And across Earth's command networks, Admiral Hale oversaw the orchestration of the next phase, a multi-layered strategy designed not merely to disable but to demonstrate the depth of human preparation, leveraging decades of secret research in propulsion, cybernetics, and quantum manipulation. And Captain Mitchell maneuvered her vessel into positions previously considered impossible by standard galactic navigation, coordinating silently with dozens of ships using encrypted protocols that alien sensors could not detect. And each strike, each subtle movement, each calculated disruption reinforced a reality the Council was reluctant to accept. Humans did not fight like any known species. They anticipated, adapted, and implemented solutions faster than their opponents could react. And while the enforcement fleet struggled to regain coherence, Earth satellites, orbital platforms, and deep space sensors synchronized to feed live data into command hubs, allowing leaders and operators to adjust in real time, responding to alien tactics almost before they occurred. And the human delegation on Earth worked with the same calm precision, issuing orders and counterorders that flowed seamlessly through a network of analysts, engineers, and strategists, each aware of the stakes yet unshaken by fear or uncertainty, because humanity had long trained for scenarios that even the Council considered unlikely or impossible. And as the alien fleets attempted to regroup, they discovered that their fastest ships could not outpace human coordination. Their communications remained jammed or intercepted without explanation, and systems designed to protect them became liabilities, operating in contradiction to their intended purposes. And in the Council chambers, the Speaker attempted to maintain a facade of control, issuing statements about containment and compliance, while private communications revealed panic, disbelief, and dissent, factions forming as members debated whether to escalate further, retreat, or attempt negotiation with a species that had already proven it could neutralize entire task forces effortlessly. And back on Earth, human scientists monitored every variable, recalibrating sensors, propulsion arrays, and defensive measures to ensure that the next phase would reinforce deterrence without unnecessary risk. And Captain Mitchell felt the subtle hum of her ship as quantum-based cloaking, propulsion adjustment, and precision targeting systems worked in concert, invisible to enemy sensors, yet fully synchronized across a theater of operations spanning millions of kilometers. And when the next strike began, it was surgical, disabling propulsion cores, communications hubs, and command nodes without destroying hull integrity, leaving alien crews bewildered, immobilized, and increasingly aware of their vulnerability. And as reports filtered back to the Council, confusion and fear rippled through delegates, the Virex clicking mandibles in disbelief as entire squadrons ceased functioning, the Corolith murmuring in shock at the apparent intelligence and foresight of humans. And some delegates began to realize that the galaxy had fundamentally misjudged a species that had never demanded attention, but had quietly prepared for the inevitable. And in the quiet corridors of human command centers, leaders debated the ethical implications of their power, weighing restraint against the opportunity to permanently neutralize threats. And a decision was made to maintain measured engagement, to demonstrate capability without unnecessary destruction, because humanity's goal was survival and deterrence, not conquest. And as alien fleets floundered helplessly, they received direct transmissions from Earth, calm and factual, outlining the consequences of further aggression and futility of resistance, messages devoid of anger but filled with certainty. And these transmissions, repeated across multiple channels simultaneously, left the Council with no doubt that the human response was not reactionary but premeditated, organized, and deliberately calibrated to ensure compliance without total annihilation. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand that the one chance they had given humanity had not been rejected, squandered, or ignored. It had been transformed into a demonstration of capability, foresight, and strategic brilliance, a lesson in humility that no alien power had anticipated. And as the immobilized fleets remained under human control, Earth's command centers prepared for the next phase, one that would permanently reshape the perception of humanity, ensuring that no miscalculation, no underestimation, and no assumption of weakness could ever be repeated. And even as the Council debated their next move, intelligence networks across countless species began to record, analyze, and disseminate reports of human efficiency, coordination, and precision, leaving a galaxy-wide ripple of uncertainty, fear, and newfound respect that would echo far beyond the immediate theater of operations, because humanity had accepted the one chance offered and turned it into a revelation that the galaxy had never expected, proving that survival, intelligence, and preparation could outmatch even the most advanced fleets and the most confident councils. And that realization would mark the beginning of a new era where the name of Earth would no longer be whispered with disregard, but with caution, awe, and the knowledge that it was not to be tested again. As the alien fleets drifted powerless, their crews struggling to comprehend systems that defied comprehension, humanity moved with deliberate, precise efficiency, executing a strategy that the Council had never imagined, because decades of hidden research, covert shipbuilding, and tactical simulation were now converging into a demonstration of unparalleled capability, and every movement, every strike, every calculated disruption reinforced a reality that the galaxy had profoundly misjudged humanity. And across Earth's command networks, Admiral Hale monitored the theater with quiet intensity, issuing synchronized commands to multiple task forces spread across millions of kilometers of space, each vessel acting independently yet in perfect harmony, a symphony of human engineering and strategic foresight. And Captain Mitchell guided her ship through the immobilized fleet, observing alien crews frantically attempting repairs, issuing frantic orders, and arguing over commands that no longer functioned, their confidence eroding as human control continued unchallenged. And in council chambers, delegates argued, accused one another of underestimating Earth, and scrambled to adapt plans that had failed before they were even executed, while private communications revealed fear, disbelief, and desperation. And across the galaxy, whispers spread that humanity was no ordinary species, that Earth had secrets, preparation, and capabilities far beyond expectation. And as a human, forces began the next phase, They did not strike with reckless aggression, but with calculated restraint, neutralizing propulsion systems, sensor arrays, and communication networks without destroying the hulls, leaving alien vessels stranded, inert, yet intact, a display of control designed to communicate intelligence, not malice, and scientists on Earth adjusted satellite arrays, recalibrated weapon systems, and monitored quantum networks, ensuring that every contingency was accounted for and no unintended destruction occurred, and the Council's attempt to issue orders were met with confusion and failure as alien commanders realized they were no longer in control, their training and protocols rendered useless by a species they had assumed would be defeated with a single ultimatum. And across the immobilized fleets, alien crews attempted to coordinate, only to find that every action they took had been anticipated and countered, demonstrating a level of strategic foresight that no galactic power had ever witnessed, and Captain Mitchell observed as the flagship of the Virex, the largest vessel in the enforcement armada, attempted maneuvers that had been successful against entire sectors before, only to find its systems overridden, engines misaligned, weapons inoperable, and the crew powerless to intervene. And on Earth, leaders coordinated the next steps with deliberation and restraint, balancing the demonstration of capability with the ethical imperative to avoid unnecessary destruction, because humanity understood that deterrence required not just power but measured intelligence. And as the human forces expanded their control, intercepting communications, redirecting fleets, and neutralizing threats without casualties, the galaxy began to grasp the depth of the miscalculation that humanity was not to be dismissed, underestimated, or coerced. And as the Council scrambled to respond, internal divisions emerged, some advocating immediate escalation, others retreat, all forced to confront a species that had mastered both strategic patience and tactical brilliance. And as the fifth phase of engagement commenced, the human forces executed a coordinated demonstration of dominance that combined immobilization, communication control, and precise shows of firepower in distant sectors, making it impossible for the Council or any enforcement fleet to ignore the reality. Earth had accepted the one chance and transformed it into an irreversible demonstration of superiority, rewriting every expectation of galactic engagement. And as Admiral Hale and Captain Mitchell oversaw operations, the understanding spread through human command centers that the galaxy's perception of humanity would never recover. And even as alien fleets attempted desperate measures to regain control, they found that every strategy, every adjustment, had been anticipated and neutralized, leaving the Council and its delegates to confront the profound lesson that the species they had dismissed as weak, disorganized, and primitive had become an unstoppable force, not through brute strength alone, but through foresight, preparation, and the unshakable will to survive. And as intelligence networks across multiple worlds recorded the events, the whispers of human capability spread, creating a ripple effect of fear, respect, and uncertainty that would shape galactic interactions for generations. Because the one chance given to humanity had not been squandered, ignored, or rejected. It had been transformed into an enduring proof that the galaxy had misjudged the resilience, ingenuity, and strategic brilliance of the people of Earth, and that realization would forever mark the moment when humans went from being dismissed to being understood as a force that could not and would not be underestimated. As the immobilized alien fleets hung in space, unable to respond or regain control, humanity initiated the next stage of its carefully orchestrated strategy, a combination of subtle demonstration and strategic pressure designed to ensure the galaxy fully comprehended both human capability and resolve. And across Earth's command centers, analysts monitored every fleet movement, propulsion anomaly, and communication disruption, cross-referencing decades of research and real-time data to ensure that every decision reinforced the objective of deterrence without unnecessary loss of life. And Admiral Hale coordinated the deployment of specialized vessels capable of manipulating gravitational fields and quantum communications, creating localized zones where alien ships could neither maneuver nor communicate effectively, while Captain Mitchell piloted her ship into these zones, executing maneuvers that blurred the line between conventional navigation and advanced physics, moving her vessel in ways that seemed impossible, demonstrating a mastery of space that alien crews could neither predict nor counter. And the Council chambers were thrown into chaos as reports poured in of entire squadrons immobilized, communications severed, and command hierarchies rendered impotent, with delegates shouting over one another, attempting to assign blame, and scrambling to formulate new plans that had no precedent in galactic history, while private communications among species revealed a growing fear that humanity's capabilities were both deliberate and inexhaustible, and across the immobilized fleet's alien crews attempted to improvise, issuing orders that failed to execute, weapons that refused to fire, engines that misaligned as though under control of an unseen hand, and the Virex flagship, once a symbol of dominance, drifted inert, its crew in escalating panic as they realized their years of training, strategy, and technology were insufficient against an opponent that had anticipated every possibility. And on Earth, human strategists debated not destruction, but the ethical application of overwhelming power, understanding that true deterrence required control and precision rather than chaos. And as the demonstration continued, human forces systematically disabled critical systems across multiple alien vessels, showing restraint by leaving crews alive while simultaneously asserting complete control over the battlefield. And council delegates attempted to issue orders for countermeasures, only to find their communications intercepted, redirected, or neutralized, creating further confusion and forcing them to confront the uncomfortable reality that humanity had transformed what was intended as an ultimatum into a demonstration of unassailable superiority. And as the hours passed, the Council's internal debates shifted from confidence to fear, some arguing for immediate retreat, others advocating desperate escalation, and intelligence networks across the galaxy began to report the unprecedented scope of human coordination, ingenuity, and technological advancement, spreading whispers that Earth was no ordinary planet, that its species had mastered both strategy and adaptability to a degree never before seen. And as Admiral Hale authorized the next series of control maneuvers, targeting alien propulsion, navigation, and communications in a synchronized pattern, Captain Mitchell executed her ship's role flawlessly, moving in coordination with dozens of vessels, each action demonstrating foresight, control, and the precision of human planning, and alien crews struggled helplessly, their attempts at resistance neutralized before they could begin, their fear growing with every failed maneuver. And across Earth, scientists monitored the impact, ensuring stability, while adjusting for variables no alien power had predicted. In the Council, now acutely aware that the one chance they had offered humanity had been transformed into a live demonstration of strategic mastery, scrambled to reassess every assumption they had ever held about the species, their confidence shattered, their sense of superiority replaced with the dawning realization that Earth had not only survived the ultimatum, but had rewritten the rules of engagement, proving that underestimation of humanity came with consequences no galactic power had ever imagined. And as human forces prepared for the final calibrated phase, a synchronized display of dominance, designed to cement deterrence, the galaxy collectively began to recognize that the species they had dismissed, ignored, and underestimated had become an entity that could not and would not be controlled, manipulated, or coerced, and the lessons learned in those tense hours would ripple across civilizations, reshaping strategies, alliances, and perceptions of power for generations, because humanity had turned a single chance into a demonstration of unmatched intelligence, preparation, and resilience that no species could overlook without peril. As the galaxy reeled from the unfolding demonstration of human capability, Earth's forces entered the seventh phase, a calculated display designed to cement deterrence and reshape galactic perception. And across command centers, scientists, strategists, and military leaders coordinated with relentless precision, monitoring every alien system, predicting every potential maneuver, and synchronizing fleets in real time to ensure flawless execution. And Admiral Hale oversaw the operation with steady resolve, issuing directives that balanced demonstration with restraint, knowing that true power lay not in destruction, but in proving absolute control. And Captain Mitchell maneuvered her vessel with unparalleled skill, guiding it through complex fields of mobilized alien ships, demonstrating both agility and coordination that defied conventional expectations. While across the immobilized fleet's alien crews struggled to regain coherence, their systems failing repeatedly, communications scrambled or intercepted, and engines misaligned as if manipulated by an unseen force, and the council chambers erupted in chaos as delegates struggled to interpret reports, voices overlapping, accusations flying, and confidence eroding as the scale of human preparation became undeniable. And private communications revealed a growing recognition among alien factions that humanity was neither primitive nor predictable, that Earth had anticipated not just the immediate threat, but the cascading consequences of every possible response. And across the immobilized fleets, alien crews attempted improvisation, issuing orders that failed to execute, weapons that refused to fire, propulsion systems that locked unpredictably, leaving ships drifting helplessly in formation, and the Virex flagship, the pride of their fleet, remained inert, its crew overwhelmed by the precision and foresight displayed by humans. And on Earth, leaders debated the ethical implications of their power, ensuring that restraint accompanied capability, balancing demonstration with measured control, because humanity understood that true deterrence required discipline, strategy, and moral judgment. And as the seventh phase continued, human forces systematically neutralized alien command networks, disrupted communication links, and subtly manipulated sensor arrays, demonstrating mastery over technology and strategy without causing unnecessary destruction. And Council delegates attempted to regain control, issuing orders that were ignored, delayed, or countered by human coordination, forcing them to confront the reality that the species they had dismissed had transformed the ultimatum into a demonstration of dominance, strategic brilliance, and ethical restraint. And intelligence networks across the galaxy began to disseminate reports of unprecedented human coordination, technical mastery, and tactical foresight, spreading awareness that Earth was no longer a minor planet to be dismissed, but a species capable of shaping the outcomes of galactic conflict. And as Admiral Hale authorized the next sequence of maneuvers, Captain Mitchell executed her ship's role with flawless precision, navigating through immobilized fleets, coordinating with multiple task forces, and maintaining control over engagement zones in a demonstration that left alien crews powerless, confused, and increasingly fearful. And across command centers on Earth, analysts monitored every variable, adjusting strategies in real time to ensure that each action reinforced deterrence, displayed capability, and minimized unnecessary risk, while alien commanders attempted desperate countermeasures, only to find each effort anticipated, neutralized, or redirected, confirming that human foresight and preparation were unmatched. And in the council chambers, debates shifted from blame to panic, factions arguing over retreat, escalation, and diplomacy as reality sank in. Humanity had accepted the one chance offered and transformed it into an irreversible display of strategic mastery, control, and ethical dominance. And as human forces prepared for the final phase, a synchronized demonstration designed to leave no doubt about Earth's capabilities, the galaxy collectively realized that the planet once dismissed as weak had become an entity whose power, intelligence, and discipline could not be underestimated. And that understanding, both feared and respected, would redefine interactions, alliances, and calculations across civilizations. Because humanity had not merely survived the ultimatum, it had transformed it into a revelation of unmatched strategic brilliance, meticulous preparation, and unyielding resolve that would echo across the stars for generations, ensuring that no species would ever again assume that Earth could be coerced, intimidated, or dismissed without consequence. The final phase began with a calm precision that belied the magnitude of the moment. As human forces coordinated across the Sol system with perfect timing, their fleets, orbital platforms, and deep space installations acting in seamless concert to demonstrate the full extent of human capability. And across command centers, analysts monitored alien responses, feeding real-time data into predictive models that allowed Admiral Hale to adjust strategy instantaneously, ensuring maximum control while maintaining strict restraint. And Captain Mitchell piloted her vessel through complex engagement zones, observing alien crews struggle helplessly with systems overridden, engines misaligned, weapons inert, and communication scrambled, while human forces executed maneuvers that anticipated every possible reaction. Each calculated move reinforcing the galaxy's understanding that Earth had mastered not only technology and strategy, but the foresight to neutralize threats before they could act. And in council chambers, delegates argued desperately, their voices rising in disbelief as reports detail fleets immobilized, command hierarchies disrupted, and entire sectors rendered powerless without a single catastrophic loss of life, and private communications among alien factions reveal growing fear, confusion, and an acknowledgement that the species they had dismissed had achieved a level of coordination and adaptability unprecedented in galactic history. And as a synchronized demonstration unfolded, human forces selectively disabled alien propulsion systems, sensor networks, and communication arrays, leaving vessels intact but entirely under control. A clear message that humanity's strength lay in precision, strategy, and restraint rather than indiscriminate destruction. And across Earth, scientists and strategists monitored every variable, recalibrating systems, adjusting deployments, and confirming that the demonstration achieved its purpose: absolute deterrence, undeniable capability, and irrevocable proof that the galaxy had misjudged humanity at its peril. And Captain Mitchell observed as the Virex flagship, once a symbol of dominance, drifted inert, its crew powerless to act, while other alien vessels remained similarly immobilized, crews bewildered, and command structures effectively neutralized. And in the Council, panic spread as delegates attempted to issue orders, only to find communications intercepted, redirected, or blocked, forcing them to confront the reality that humanity had not only survived the ultimatum but transformed it into a controlled, deliberate, and complete display of superiority. And across intelligence networks, the event was recorded, analyzed, and disseminated, creating a galaxy-wide ripple of fear, respect, and new understanding that Earth was no longer a planet to be dismissed, underestimated, or coerced. And as the final maneuvers concluded, human forces retracted slightly, leaving alien fleets intact but entirely aware of the cost of aggression, a restrained demonstration that emphasized both capability and ethical control. And across command centers, leaders understood that this was not a victory in the conventional sense, but a strategic assertion of dominance and deterrence that permanently altered galactic dynamics. And the Council convened to reassess every assumption about humanity, acknowledging privately that the species they had dismissed had rewritten the rules of engagement, forced recognition of human ingenuity, discipline, and foresight, and established a precedent that would ensure no future threat underestimated Earth. And on Earth itself, Admiral Hale, Captain Mitchell, and the leadership cadre observed the culmination of decades of preparation, decades of foresight, research, and coordination, realizing that humanity had not merely responded to a galactic ultimatum. It had transformed it into a revelation of strategic brilliance, technological mastery, and unyielding resilience. And as the final reports filtered through global command centers, across diplomatic channels, and into intelligence networks, the galaxy collectively understood the truth. Humanity had been given one chance, and it had used that chance to demonstrate that underestimation of the people of Earth carried consequences no civilization could endure. And in that understanding, fear, respect, and a new equilibrium spread. Because the lesson was clear, the era had changed, and the species that had once been dismissed as primitive had risen to a level that no power, council, or fleet could ignore, ensuring that from that moment forward, the name of Earth would be spoken with caution, awe, and the knowledge that humanity would never again be tested without consequence. And that realization echoed across the stars as the galaxy came to terms with the enduring truth that the one chance offered to humanity had not been squandered, rejected, or ignored. It had been transformed into an irrevocable demonstration of resilience, intelligence, and dominance that would define interstellar relations for generations to come.